Welcome to the After Chat. I'm Michael.
I'm Madison.
And today we are going to be talking about living generously.
Ooh.
You ready?
I am.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the After Chat. Real questions. Real talk. Real life.
What is the weirdest smell that you're actually kind of into?
Asphalt. Like whenever they're putting like blacktopping the roads.
Does it have a smell?
Oh yeah.
I don't think I've noticed.
No, it does. It's a very potent smell. But
Interesting.
I like it for whatever reason. It takes me back to a time whenever I was little. I would go out to visit my Grammy and my grandpa, and like the road commission like had like this little piece of property across from them, and there was like always a big pile of asphalt there. And so like we would ride our bikes up it and down the other side of it, and it was just it just takes me back to that.
Nice.
And so it's always I mean, certain things trigger certain memories, and so like the smell of asphalt does that for me.
Huh. Mine is like specifically a wooden match, like just blown out, or like I guess maybe a candle being blown out too. Like it usually I don't love the smell of smoke. Well, I guess on like a fall day I like the smell of smoke from like a distance. But I think it's just because when I light a match, I'm about to light a candle. So that means I'm about to get pretty cozy. And I don't know. It's a nice smell.
Yeah.
It is. I
like it's interesting how certain things like that like trigger certain emotions or feelings or memories.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
I don't like using lighters for candles for that exact reason. It's a little boring.
So, what is something that you are still hoping to accomplish in life?
So, I guess this is an accomplishment. It would be an accomplishment, but it's more of like a bucket list item. I would really, really like to be able to say at some point that I have gone to a national or a state park in every state. Maybe not Hawaii. I don't know. Maybe Hawaii. That would be cool too.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know, just over the course of summers as I get older, I'd like to start crossing some states off because I love camping.
So is that like something like you're just looking to do like the continental United States, or is there something specific about Hawaii that you don't know if it quite makes the cut?
Continental, because I'm thinking like road trip wise of like,
Yes.
I didn't explain that well, but like my thought is when I'm older and I have kids, I think it would be really fun for that to be like a summer like tradition to do a road trip and hit maybe a couple different states and see some different parks and stuff. So
No, I like doing that here in Virginia because Virginia's got like a ton of state parks,
Yeah.
and all of them are super cool. Like
Yeah.
I've gone to right many of them, seen different waterfalls. Then we've also got some at the beach. We got some up in the mountains. So like you can see like so many types of geographical areas here in Virginia for that.
I love Virginia. There is one particular place that I would really like to go. I think that it's in Virginia, but it's like the really high overlook. I don't know what it's called, but you can basically see so far out that I think it's like you can see 2 or 3 states at once just with like the horizon.
That's like down in the southwest part of the state. I'm blanking on the name of it.
It looks like
Maybe Sarah can put it in the notes while we're talking.
It looks like it would be quite the climb, but it seems like it would be really fun. So.
No,
Yeah.
I do like that one because I think you can see like Kentucky and Tennessee, and maybe even West Virginia from up there. But it's down in the southwest part of the state. But no, I went to one. It's got a huge overlook. It's like one of the most photographed areas in Virginia. It's called McAfee Knob.
I know what you're talking about.
That one's
Is it
awesome.
People like pretend like they're like about to fall off it
Yes.
and stuff in the pictures, but there's like more cliff underneath?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, my Facebook profile photo is me standing on that overlook.
Oh, really?
And it's super cool.
Huh.
Yeah, like
Nice.
it is a hike up there. It's like 4.5 miles up, and then like 4.5 up. Here we go. She's putting it in reddish knob. That might be it.
Huh.
But at McAfee Knob, like it's 4.5 miles up, like 4.5 down. and like we made the mistake of not like taking snacks to like everybody got up to the top and everybody's hanging out eating.
Yeah.
We're up there hangry, like not happy. We knew that there was an Arby's down at the bottom of the mountain, so like when we was on our way back down, we're gonna go get
I
beef and
love
cheddars.
Arby's.
Yes, like we're gonna go get beef and cheddars. We're gonna crush them. Like it was. It was a tough hike up. We took the access road down, but
Nice.
you still walk it, but it's not like through all the rocky terrain and stuff.
Yeah, I don't trust myself with difficult hikes down because I'm very prone to like making mistakes as I go. She just
Yep.
couldn't look out mountain.
There we go.
Yeah.
She said, "Psych, look out mountain."
I think I feel like it's like an old like fire watch tower maybe or something like that you can climb. I'm not sure.
Have you been to the Highlands State Park where they have the wild ponies?
I don't think so. My family when I was growing up went to like camped a ton. So there are places I've been that I don't necessarily remember. I don't think I've gone to that one.
That one's cool.
We spent like most of our time at Shenandoah National Park, which is like one of my favorites. And
That's
then
beautiful up there.
I live really close to Bear Creek State Park, which I like. It's like a nice little day trip type of a thing.
Yeah.
But
No, the girls and I, we go there and do like swimming and picnics after church on certain Sundays.
Yeah.
Like, and you can, if you go out there, like you can rent a kayak and go kayak all over the place. You can see where beavers have just chewed down trees like all over the place. Like they've tried to remove them before, but they just keep coming back.
They're busy.
Yes.
Yeah.
But no, I think for me, one of the things I still would love to do is, I think I've mentioned it before, like I like to write. I like to like imagine things. I like to make up stories, create characters and things like that. So
Cool.
I would really like to write a screenplay. Like I've started
Yeah.
and stopped more than once, but I think that would be a super cool thing.
Do you have like a
to do.
plot going already?
Yeah, it's kind of like a time relativity story where there's getting ready to be something happen on Earth. These folks get in a spaceship, like to leave the planet. If they are able to travel like almost the speed of light to an orbiting star and come back, so like 10
Wow.
years would have passed like in their time, but like 100+ years
Wow.
in theirs, and then like they come back and
Ooh.
experience like how the world has changed and all that.
Intriguing.
So
I like it.
I would like to. I've created characters for it and stuff, and I would like to do that. Like, I think that would be something that would be cool.
That's awesome. That is the number one thing that I think I appreciate of like really good books or really good movies is like the effort that's put into fleshing out the characters.
Yeah.
I just find it fascinating. So cool. I'll be excited to hear how that's
Yeah.
going.
So, did you grow up? Since we're going to be talking about generosity
Yes.
today and how that's important to the life of the Christian or follower of Jesus, and so we're going to be looking about that. So, did you grow up around people who were generous to others when you were coming up? Was there like somebody who modeled that for you?
I think my parents definitely modeled generosity with specifically they seem to really have a heart for like inviting it sounds weird. Okay, this sounds weird, but like guys who like hadn't quite figured out what they were doing in their life yet, my dad would kind of just like take them under their wing. So they would come over for like family dinner. And we would hang. There was one guy that like I remember thinking he was so cool, and they had him come over for dinner one time, and then he totally like he fell asleep on our floor just like vibing with us. Like we were watching TV or something, and he just was taking a nap, and I was like, this must be what it's like to have a big brother. I thought it was really fun. So they seemed to be very they had a heart for just kind of providing space for people who needed company and company and wisdom and a family that they might not have really had otherwise. So
No, that's awesome. Like
Yeah.
that's such a like so many people need like just to especially folks that are kind of on their own
Yeah.
for whatever reason, like need need a place and need to be surrounded by folks that are going to open up their hearts and their homes and stuff like that. And that's a legit gift that your parents have. Like hospitality is that's something that a lot of people struggle with, myself included. Like this is my space, like, and so hearing examples of that, that's really cool.
It makes me look forward to, I'm not really in a situation right now where I can host people just because my place is so small. But it makes me excited for when I do have the space and I can host people and just make them feel comfortable and welcome. I got to do that a couple times when I lived in Farmville, and I enjoyed it. And I haven't really gotten the chance to do it as an adult since then because my place is so small. So
my Grammy, most definitely. She was an extremely generous person, both with her time and her energy and her emotions, and as well as her resources. She, if anybody ever needed anything in this little village that she lived in, like there was a little village of like 30 people that was next to a village of like 300 people, and like everybody called my Grammy. Like everybody knew her. Everybody knew if they ever needed anything, like she was there.
I love that.
She was someone who very much modeled like being willing to just go the extra mile for folks. So. But when was the last time someone showed you generosity?
I was trying to think of this earlier. I feel like I'm surrounded by it so often. It's hard to pick out specific examples. I would say it's a small thing, but it actually did mean a lot. On Sunday nights, we finish up students here at our Powhatan campus, and we finish students, and I'm usually leaving the building around 8 p.m. And my car is always, almost always still in our far back lot because that's where I park when I get here at like 5 a.m. on Sundays. And I stay the whole day. So I'm usually completely wiped after Sundays. And I have one of my closest friends. She also serves in students, and she always helps me carry my stuff to my car. And we were walking back towards it Sunday night, this past Sunday, and I was like, I have so much crap in my car. I'm going to have to like clear off a spot to like give you a lift back to yours in like the upper parking lot. And she's like, no, it's okay. Like, I'll just walk back to my car. And I was like, thanks. It was just really sweet and a selfless detail of anticipating my needs that just meant a lot to me. Yeah. What about you?
Words of affirmation are like my love language. And so like anytime and I was trying to think about this too, like there's tons of people who are generous with their time with me, who will give me space to process things. I process things best out loud. And so like anytime someone is willing to like take time to help me talk through something, that really means a lot to me. Like being generous with your time is one of the biggest things that you can do.
Yeah.
I think, and it's one of the ways that I receive love the best. And so I had someone the other day just help me talk out loud and process some things.
Nice.
And that really means a lot to me.
Cool.
So all right, so we're going to shift gears here. So one of the things that people often think about whenever they hear generosity, especially in a church setting, is tithing.
Yes.
Like they think they automatically think they just want money. Like whenever they hear people talk about you need to be generous in like a church context, most people's minds, just for better or worse, that's where it goes.
Which tithing is important.
It is important, and it's something that we believe in here at PCC.
Yeah.
That's not going to be where we're talking about for the most part of this episode, but we figured we would just go ahead and just let the air out and just talk about it just for a moment. So, one of the first things that a lot of people think is, well, where does it come from?
Yeah.
Like, what's the first example of a tithe in the Bible? And it's actually just a bizarre story in itself. So Abraham, he gets called out. He gets told, God tells him, I'm going to go to the land of which I'll show you, which basically is, that's not a lot to go on, but he went and it was attributed to him as faith. And so he goes out there, a whole lot of things happen. It's really cool. He ends up getting into this battle with all of these different kings. And then in Genesis 14, this mysterious character just kind of comes out of nowhere. And it's Melchizedek. And this is the only time he ever pops up. He's referenced in other places
Wild name,
but
by the way.
it's pretty cool. And so this is what we read: Genesis 14 verses 18 through 20. Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, because that was his name at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So he blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. So that's it. Like, that's the very first tithe. That's just as quickly as he's referenced. Like, the lead up to that is, and Abram won. And then this happens, like, completely out of nowhere. You're just like, who is this guy? And why did Abram kick him up a tenth of all of the spoils of the war?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, and later on in Jesus, just as an interesting aside, in Hebrews, Jesus is referenced as a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. And then he's mentioned one other place in the Psalm. But that's all we get. So that's the very first tithe in the Bible right there.
Interesting.
So later on down the road, Moses comes along. He leads the people out of Egypt. And so this is where tithing ends up becoming codified in Old Testament law. It was a requirement of the law in which the Israelites were to give 10% of the crops they grew and the livestock that they raised to the tabernacle, which was like the mobile temple of the day.
Mm-hmm.
You see that in Leviticus 27:30. It says, "A tithe of everything from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belongs to the Lord. It is holy to the Lord." But just as an interesting fact, the Old Testament law required multiple kinds of tithes. One for the Levites, who were like the priestly orders, who didn't really, that was kind of like how they were sustained, part of their income. One for the use of the temple and the feasts, and one for the poor of the land. In Numbers 18:26, speak to the Levites and say to them, "When you receive from the Israelites the tithe I give you as your inheritance," like that's how they were provided for, "you must present a tenth of that tithe as the Lord's offering." So even though the Levites got a tithe, they had to tithe on that tithe.
Okay, I'm tracking.
Yes. And so that's kind of where it became codified in Mosaic law as part of the Old Covenant. And at PCC, that is one of our core beliefs.
Yes.
That we tithe. It's an essential part of our spiritual growth and practice. It teaches us and reminds us to be dependent upon God. For our provision. And so we recognize that giving 10% of our income to the local church is a biblical standard and a matter of obedience to Him. And all of us as members are expected to work towards that as a standard. We recognize that not everybody can do that coming in. And that it might be something that you need to work towards. But we do believe supporting your local church is important. And it's actually one of the areas where God invites us to challenge Him in that way. In Malachi 3:10, we read, "Bring the whole tithe into the storehouse, that there may be food in my house. Test me in this, says the Lord Almighty, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven and pour out so much blessing that there will not be enough room to store it." And so
that's awesome.
I know that's like, where it says don't test the Lord. This is one area where He says, test me in this, that if you count on the Lord for His provision, He will in fact provide for it. It might not look like what you wanted, but He will in fact provide for you. So we're not going to be talking about tithing.
Tithing is like the small part of the big picture of what we want to talk about.
Of where we want to go. But because we recognize that that's where people's minds go. We would just rather get it out of the way,
shelf it.
Explain it, mention that it is a core belief of our church. We believe in it. We believe it's a spiritual discipline, just like praying and reading your Bible and all of those things. But that's not the focus of what we're going to be talking about today. So our responsibility to living generously, and what does that mean to live generously? It's also a core value. I know I'm talking a lot, but I just want to get through this so we can get to the other part. So here at PCC, we do believe in being generous with our whole lives. So this opens up the door to the wider conversation. We believe in being generous because God has graciously given us what we need and even more than we deserve when we consider our life, our talents, our relationships, our experiences, our skills, and our money. All of those can be used to glorify his name and to help us grow in our relationship with him. So we believe in offering all of that to God, his church, and to his people. And that includes being committed to regularly volunteering within PCC and helping to support it. Giving sacrificially, which means following Jesus's example of sacrifice, and occasionally giving of our time and our money and our resources in ways that stretch us. Being helpful in meeting the needs of our community and getting out. We primarily do that through our do-good efforts, and just making yourself available to invitations from God and to give of ourselves for the good of others at any time, which means, like I mentioned a moment ago, like when people give you their time and their attention, that's a gift.
Yeah.
Like that is an example of being generous. So I just wanted to get all of that kind of preface stuff out there that's going to kind of guide where we go.
Yeah, so we have a lot of options to act out generosity with the people around us. In particular, when we were trying to kind of talk through how we wanted to talk about the concept of generosity, I remembered there was a moment where we both talked about, like, we have the perfect example in the Bible of Jesus and the way that he shared generosity. So I know you have a couple points under here of examples. I'm going to steal one from you, if that's okay.
Yep.
So we have in John 13, verses 12 through 17, Jesus tells his disciples, "Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should also wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." So it's talking about not just the actions of actually like washing each other's feet, but like that posture of just the way that he lived his life of humility and service. And then we have kind of a continued thought here of that Jesus shows us that true greatness comes from serving others selflessly, putting their needs above our own. So, I mean, we're followers of Christ. We're told that we need to morph ourselves into Jesus. So we're supposed to be doing the same thing. We're supposed to be generous with all of ourselves, serving each other with love and compassion, just like Jesus did. And I think the most specific, the note here that I'm noticing that's jumping out to me the most is that it's not about getting recognition for the ways that you're generous. And that honestly, that's a hard thing for me. Or it was at one point. I've gotten better with it, but like being generous just makes me so happy that sometimes I want to talk to other people about how excited I was that I got to do something. And then I'm like, it's not about me. It's not about me.
That's where
so it's a balance you have to find.
It is, because whenever you feel joy about something, and whenever you do serve others, and you're doing it because you genuinely care for them, like you want to invite others to come along with it, but you have to balance like your motives there, because Jesus also says if you do it to be seen by others, then you've already received your reward.
Yep.
And so there is a balancing act there.
Yeah, and it's all about just being in tune with yourself and your emotions and everything. But I would say I think that's probably the biggest hiccup in being generous with lives, is that our entire lives we can put so much work and effort into it and then make it all about us, which is just kind of a bummer.
And one of the things that really jumps out, or really comes out in that story, is like that was like the role of the most like lowliest of lowly of servants. So he was like saying, you need to serve each other in this way. This is the posture that you need to accept and take on if you're going to do this in a way that's actually honoring to me. And he did speak about the joy that comes from that. We read it whenever he said, "Give and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you." That's from Luke 6, verse 38. And it illustrates Jesus's belief in the principle of kind of like reciprocity, that when we give freely, like we receive abundantly in return. You know, and he famously taught that value of giving without expecting anything in return, like from the people, like
Yeah.
from God you will get it from. It's more blessed to give than receive, that we read that in Acts 20:35, and it captures really his essence of generosity. It's just not about giving material gifts, but also about the attitude of the heart and a willingness to share with others out of love and compassion, because we received that from him. So it really is, like you mentioned, that heart posture, that heart stance, like we're generous because we've received.
Yeah, I think it's so focused on putting others above yourself in any situation that you're in. I think if that's your mentality and you go into situations thinking other people are more important than me here, like
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to elevate others, I'm going to elevate their needs and their wants, and I'm going to put them before myself, then I think your heart stance kind of will naturally follow suit, and you'll find unique ways to be generous in different situations, and the Holy Spirit will guide you, of course.
Yeah.
But like I think you get about 90% of the work done if your mindset is just they're more important than me.
Mm-hmm.
They're like I need to serve them just with everybody. Just yeah, sacrificing
Yes.
yourself intentionally will really help that heart stance of it not being about you and what you got to do.
And when
Yeah.
Jesus said, like, the master is not above the servant,
Yep.
he is our master.
Yep.
And if he's our Lord, just like he said whenever he was washing his feet, like, if you call me Lord, and that's right, because I am.
Yeah.
Like, if he came to serve and not be served,
Mm.
who are we to put ourselves above that?
Yeah.
Like, so that means we need to follow suit. Like, if he's our example, then that's the way that we need to go. And we're going to pick this up in a moment, but because on the back part of this, Jesus actually did give us some practical examples of things that he's going to look for
Yeah.
From us later. But check out this clip first.
When a person really gives their lives to God through making a commitment to Jesus Christ, which some of us have done at our campus, every one of our campuses and online, people in this room, some of us have done, and many of us are checking out what the rest of us have done. You're trying to figure out if this whole thing is for real. It's okay, but you need to know what you're getting into. When you make a decision to follow Jesus, we pledge everything we've got. My entire life, there is nothing held back. There's no stone unturned. There's no place that God can't go. There's no untouchable corner of my life. And I don't work on a shift. I'm not committed like I'm clocking in and clocking out with God. The commitment that I make is not reserved for certain situations or just when I'm around church folk or just on Sundays or just in other kinds of moments. I don't get to claim notable exceptions to my commitment. My commitment to Jesus is a complete, all-encompassing, all-in, no loophole commitment. It's a covenant that way. All that I have at my disposal, everything that's in my purview, my mind, my thoughts, my time, my body, my influence, my talent, my time, my stuff, and my money, it is all His. Because He's the master. And I'm the servant. I'm the doulos. In the most holy of ways, I am his slave.
That can be a very tough teaching for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm no exception. Whenever I first came to Jesus, it was a gradual surrender of more and more areas of my life. And the last two that really that took the hardest that I held on to for the longest was time and money, knowing that I was here to serve others and that I was at the behest that, I mean, obviously I'm out there doing my thing, like I'm living my life, but like if somebody needed something or needs something, like I need to be available to the prompts of the Holy Spirit to get into places to help people in certain areas. And then the second one was my money. That was finally the last thing that I really entrusted to God. But I love what Brian said there. Like, I don't commit only in certain situations or claim notable exceptions for my commitment. It's complete, all-encompassing, no loophole covenant. Mind, body, influence, talent, time, stuff, and money is all His. Like, I have, plans and goals, but our master has the right to intervene
Yeah.
and move in whenever he sees fit. And what jumped out to you from that? Like, what were the hardest areas or the ones that
Oh.
went last?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. For some reason, I think that I think I'm just prone to being an all or nothing person.
Mm-hmm.
So to think about something being all encompassing, like I'm there for it. Like I'm excited about it. I think in reality, it's a little bit harder to do. Particularly, ugh. Yeah, I think I struggle mostly with my money. Like honestly, I don't struggle to give it up. I struggle to I struggle to plan well enough in advance to have the freedom to give it easily. So I know that you have like a full on spreadsheet going.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk us through?
Yeah, I can go over some of that. And
Yeah.
and my approach to this happened. So Jesus spoke about the importance of being good stewards with
Yes.
our money and our resources. You read it, and you can read it in Matthew 6:19 through 21, where he advises us not to store up treasures on earth where they can be destroyed, but rather to invest in heavenly treasures that last. It's like saying, just focus on what really matters, just not the shiny stuff that's going to rust away anyway.
Yeah.
And he also tells a parable in Matthew 25 in verses 14 through 30 about the talents. Like this guy's getting ready to go away. He gives these three guys some talents.
Which is their word for money.
Yeah. And the ones that used it responsibly and showed growth over time were like commended, and the one that buried it and didn't do anything with it, like he got kind of chastised. So it's not about like hoarding or squandering what we have, but using the resources that we're given wisely, and for good purposes. So I use it's a zero balance budget. So like I know what's coming in each month. And
Yeah.
so I just do a budget line for everything. So that way at the end of the month, every single cent is accounted for. And right off the top is my giving to the local church.
Yeah.
That comes right off the top, and then everything else comes. Then it's savings, and then it's the rest of everything else, home utilities, and living expenses and things like that. So
I have I'm working, I think I'm probably like close to being there with my budget as far as like being a good steward. I'm unlearning some really bad money habits that I had when I was younger. And the biggest thing that I struggle with is if it's available to me and I don't have a plan for it, I'm gonna spend it.
Yeah.
So I like the concept of just kind of budgeting specifically, and I don't know if you've said it so far, but you've mentioned to me at one point that you do budget specifically to have extra on hand to be generous with.
Yes.
Which that was a new concept for me. I hadn't thought of that before. So I have a budget spreadsheet, whatever, that I go over that does go down to like the exact like penny, and my tithe and giving to the church kind of comes off like this. It happens automatically the same day I get paid, which is great because I don't even think about it. But then like I hadn't ever thought of, I'm gonna have a portion of this budget of this money set aside just to have in case something pops up.
Yeah, and that's where I really like this zero balance thing. So whenever I and I do this quarterly. So like I've already got second quarter planned.
Dang.
I'm anal with it, but if I'm not, then bad things are prone to happening. Like so
I
for
feel
me
ya.
it's a discipline to keep myself in
Yeah.
check. So ties to the church, and then savings, and then everything comes after that. And so whatever's left over that could be considered walking around money, like that would
Yeah.
be something that I would give extra if I feel so moved.
Okay.
And this wasn't something that I just woke up and decided
Yeah.
to do one day. Like I had to be very intentional with it because I was in not a great financial place back in the day. And so I had to do like what's called, I don't know if he talks about it in that message, but like the debt snowball, where like I had to get out of debt
I
first.
did too.
And then it made it.
Don't give an 18-year-old a credit card.
I learned that lesson. Yeah. Yes, I learned that lesson. And I learned it hard, and I learned it twice. And so that was what kind of helped me to shift gears. Like, if I don't want to live like that, then I need to come up with a way that holds me accountable and keeps me on track. And so it was born out of necessity.
Do you have a cool story of you just had some left over and you were like, I'm going to hold on to this for a specific situation that, like, turned out really well? I know we're not supposed to talk about it because it's not about us, but
No, I mean, I've not really specific like that, but whenever I feel prompted in the moment to do something, I will.
I like that.
Like, whenever, like, there's been a couple, I mean, we're here, so I mean, up by in Midlothian, like, there's some people that are typically out on like the medians, and so one day I am leery to give cash. So what I did was, he had a sign saying that he was homeless and needed some assistance. So my girls and I went into the store, got them, there was 2 people out there, got them each like a meal, and then packed like toiletry items, like a kind of ballpark their sizes, got them some clothes, and then did that.
That's awesome.
But you have to have the resources to do that kind of thing.
I've heard some people that will they'll make up bags ahead of time of like big Ziploc bags with like essentials in it, or like shelf stable snacks maybe, and like toothbrush, toothpaste, deodorant, like things that people would need in a pinch, and then they just keep them in the trunk of their car so that they always have one when they need it. And I thought that's a cool idea. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of get into some different ideas of how we can be generous. So before I talk about some of the ways that I've learned to be generous with my time, I want to talk about why we know that this is important. So I'm going to read from Matthew 25. This is a long chunk of scripture, but I think that it's important.
And it really drives home the point of why this matters and how it's going to be important down the road.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. All right, so we're picking up chapter 25, verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world." That's cool.
Yes.
I want to be a part of that. "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and fed you, thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go to visit you?" Which, like, I love when Jesus gets questions back from people that it's like, you're missing the point.
Yes.
You're so close. Then he will say to those on his... Oh, I skipped a line. Sorry.
There you go.
The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these, brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Then he will say to those on the left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat." Oh, goodness gracious. "I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me." And they answered, "But when did we see you in all of those ways, and we did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for the one of the least of these, you did not do for me." Like, that cuts me to the core. Like, the first part is like so nice of thinking, oh, aw, we did this like to Jesus because we served other people, and then you keep reading, and then you're like, oh,
The inverse is true as well.
I didn't do anything like in this situation, and that's, I don't know, it just it hits hard. And I love the concept of all of the areas that he kind of encompasses. Like they
Yes.
keep saying the same things over and over again. Specifically, I'm gonna find the right spot. Hungry, thirsty, stranger, maybe possibly lonely, isolated, in need of clothes, like the practicals of life, in prison, visiting, company, being sick,
Yes.
like all of those areas. It's all encompassing. Just as the entirety of ourselves is meant to be generous towards other people, the ways that we can be generous is all encompassing in their needs.
Yes.
It's not just cash or a meal or a visit. Like, I think it requires a lot of slowing down and being in tune with what God is telling you, and also being open to knowing and talking to people and hearing, like, is there something that I can do here? So in particular, I am not I'm not rolling with cash all the time. Like, I have to be careful with my money, but something that I do have a lot of excess right now, because I am single and I live by myself and I don't have kids to look after. I have like a really unique opportunity to be generous with my time in a way that I might not ever get to that point again, at least until, one day when I am an empty nester. I might have that same amount of time. So I'm really trying to take advantage of that right now, just this season of life of there are ways that I can serve and help people that is a blessing to them, sometimes even financially, but it doesn't have to be me giving them money. And the number one way that I really try and do that for other people is childcare. I used to be a nanny. That was one of my first jobs, and I loved it. So if I'm able to step in and help provide childcare for a family that needs it, and I'm able to get to love on some kids and let some parents that are in need of a break get a break, then I don't know, it fills my cup. It makes me happy, particularly when it's close friends of mine and I know extenuating circumstances of like, man, they just really need to sit down and like, husband and wife just like talk as adults without like little kids being like, but why? Like, I know that they need that right now. So I'm able to kind of step in and offer it. It's really cool.
Well,
I love it.
And that's being very generous with your time.
Yeah.
Like to make that space for other people. And the thing that really speaks to me about that, and you mentioned it, is like all of those things just speak to the human condition and things that we all need.
Yeah.
Like, and it gives you a sense of responsibility for the world around you.
Yes.
Like,
yeah.
you are responsible for making this place better and reflecting me in it.
Yeah.
And if you are the doulos, like what Brian talked about, and your master says these are the things that you should be doing, like, so it really should cause you to self-reflect and say, what am I doing to do these things? How am I living these out? These should be a marker of the character of a follower of Jesus. And
or what am I overlooking?
Like, it should cause you, like you said, to slow down, reflect, and look around it and just be fully present in your environment.
Yeah.
And see where these people might be. And so, and there's tons of ways to get connected and be of help. One of the things that we do is once a month we have a group in Farmville called Better Days that we work with. We go out and volunteer there once a month. I spent a season, I'm using these as examples of things that you can do. Like, I spent like a season delivering. I found a group that was that would make these bags of food to give to kids in local schools
Yeah.
to take home over the weekend because their primary source of nutrition was coming from school lunches and school breakfasts.
Wow,
And so
that's
this would
awesome.
be something that they would get.
Oh, that's
every
such a good idea.
Yeah, and as someone that suffered from food insecurity
Yeah.
whenever I was little,
Yeah.
like whenever I heard about that group, like I couldn't get there
Yeah.
quick enough
I
and say,
bet.
I want to hear more about this. Like
Yeah.
how can I be a part of this?
That's really cool.
And that's where like you can use your experiences and your ability to empathize with others and let that drive you
Yeah.
to do something good and be generous in that way. And there's tons of things, I'm sure, wherever you are, there's
Yeah.
a place where you can get connected.
There's also, I think there's some ways that we can be generous with the ways that we are interacting with others around us, and it's not always like a formal volunteer situation. But one of the things that I got really comfortable with in my past job was kindly assisting seniors with technology, because usually when they struggle with it, the response that they get is just figure it out. Like
Yeah.
just people kind of writing them off if they don't know how to use it. And so I got the opportunity to do that a few times because my mom is she works in Powhatan County. She's in charge of community matters, which is just a lot of programming for seniors. And so I was able to sit in a library for a few hours and just have some people come in, and most of the time, like they would just leave with the like, thank you for not just doing it for me, because I would sit there and show
Yes.
them how. And so just being able to slow down, and I think whenever I do notice, I'm trying to pay attention to it more now, but when I feel something pop up at the last minute, some opportunity that somebody's asked me to do something, or I thought I could do something, but it's last minute and I'm having trouble switching gears, I kind of lean into it more. And I'm just like, whatever I have to do, I will make that happen, because I know that it could be the Holy Spirit leading me to
Yes.
serving somebody in a particular way. And it's, conversations with people, asking them how they're doing, encouraging them, words of affirmation. Like there are so many things that you can do that is just being generous with your time if you're slowing down and being willing to put other people first.
And there's a couple different prayers that I prayed whenever I first started looking for ways to get connected and get involved. And I've mentioned before, like I was in a very deep depression whenever I first came to God, and I figured one of the ways that if I stopped focusing, because usually depression, this is not true for everybody, but it was true for me. Like it was just a constant dwelling on my own situation. And so what I figured that I needed to do was to take the attention off myself and put it somewhere else.
That helps me too.
And so one of the things I did was I prayed a couple different prayers. One was seek me out and find anything and offense me and let me know what that is. And then I would usually let that go in to some form of like break my heart for what breaks yours and show me where I can go and do good for others.
Yeah.
And that led me to a couple different places, to a food pantry that was trying to get up and running that I got to help with and assist with for a while, and then that meals program for kids. And like so those were kind of like my first steps out to try to serve others in that way. And so
That's awesome.
that could be something that you guys could do. Pray something like that, but there's tons of ways to get connected. If you just ask the Holy Spirit and God to show you where you can get involved and where you can help serve others, and to be more generous with your time and your energy and just be intentional about it, awesome things will happen, and you'll put yourself in a position to see God working
Oh yeah.
in ways that you wouldn't otherwise get to see.
Yeah, it's an incredible process to go through to start opening your eyes to more ways that you can serve others. You mentioned it earlier, but this is it's a line in one of the prayers that I have that I will pray pretty much every day. That's Lord, it starts off with other things, but it's basically saying like, Lord, grant that, and then you kind of like go through this list of things, and one of them is to not so much seek to be served as to serve. And that is one of the biggest like attitude resets for me, like every day of sitting down and thinking, it's about what I can do for others, and just putting myself in that headspace of not expecting anything in return.
Yes.
Not doing it for the sake of looking a certain way, but that is my life's mission, is to seek to be served more than to serve. It's a
awesome.
it's a crazy like attitude booster. You wouldn't think it would be, but it is. Like, I feel so much better after I put myself in that headspace of it's not about me, it's about everybody else. I just am like, yeah, let me go take on the day. Like, I get ready for it. So it's cool.
But it really speaks to that posture and that headspace. You're there on behalf of your master.
Yeah.
You're not there for you, and for me especially, because my social anxiety was out of this world during that time. So for me, it was, I'm here to be obedient to him, regardless of how I feel and my emotions at
That's
the time.
good.
Like, this is why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here to serve him.
Yeah.
And whenever you do that, it does to the same scripture that we mentioned earlier with Jesus, where you do feel his joy
Yeah.
in those moments.
Definitely.
So this was awesome.
Yeah. I got to go find somewhere to serve. Let me out of here.
So like, share, subscribe. We want to know what you guys think. Leave us a review. And if you do leave us a review and we read it, we will send you a mug. And we will see you back here next week for another episode of The After Chat.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for The After Chat. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To be the first to hear our next episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button and get notifications for new content. You can also follow us on social media on Instagram at PCC Wired and Facebook at Passion Community Church. For additional resources and links, check out the description. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on The After Chat.